Okay, we'll go through this presentation. You guys the proposed budget presentation. You guys will actually get the physical proposed budget book. We can talk about some things on what were made assumptions. Just keep in mind that we just got our certified values yesterday. So we're still doing some calculations and things like that. So if I don't give you direct answers, that's probably why, because we've really had not even quite, well, we've had about 24 hours that we've had it now, which is the requirement. They have to get it to us by the 25th, but I'm not putting anything into the proposed budget based on those numbers until August 9th. But this is just kind of a recap so you guys can get an idea. I'll be glad to take any questions as we go along, or any kind of suggestions within the budget before the August 9th. GP and I and Chad met extensively yesterday to kind of finalize everything after we kind of got our numbers where we thought they would be. And so working through those, and still some forecasts are coming in until the proposed. Keep in mind, we don't have to final everything until September 30th, or September 13th, not September 30th, but till September 13th when we'll vote on that. So moving forward, I guess you touched that because my hands were right here when I was talking. So 1 cent on the ad valorem tax rate. Keep in mind this presentation was done by Friday, and we didn't get our certified values until yesterday. So once we got our certified values, that number, so 1 cent is now on the final certified values, $264,873, allowing for protested and assuming a 99% collection rate. Compare that to last year's value, which was $244,422, which you would expect that because the appraisals went up. Revenue, so with this was done Friday, so the revenue for the property tax, we're assuming this is at 99% collection. This is with the TERS values taken out of it, and this is comparing budget to budget, and so it's at a little over $9,067,000. With the new value, with what we got our certified yesterday, it'll be about $9,492,387. We had some other revenue forecast come in a little bit lower, so you know, until we get that finalized, and when we come to the proposed, we're going to offset and see what else we can fit in with that additional, because the appraisals were a little bit higher. We were pretty spot on with our estimation of what what it would have been. We were just off by a little bit, so we gained a little bit there on the property tax, but not much. So that's going to remain about the same. It'll remain a little, about $9.5 million. Sales tax, that's at 10. And keep in mind, this is budget to budget. Not actual. So we budgeted last year $9.3 million. We're going to budget about $10.4 million, which is a little over 12% increase. Over the last 3 years, we've budgeted, we've seen an increase probably in around the 11% range. So we went in the middle of that and we over actual what we budgeted 5% over what we actually are projected to receive. So in essence, that in turn, that means that's about a little over, about 13% over the budgeted number. We still have, keep in mind, we still have 2 more months of sales tax, which has been really good. At some point, we didn't want to go to the full 11% because, you know, at some point it's got to normalize a little bit. I think I've been saying that for the past 3 years, and that hasn't happened, which is a good thing. But, you know, I just don't want it to get into a situation where we over budget and then we come underneath. So.
But aren't you up already for this sales tax year, $1.3 million or $1.4 million?
We're right at $1 million right now.
So your budget's only up $1.1 million.
Correct.
Okay. So are you going to adjust that if another month comes in?
I mean, if another month, I mean, we'll get probably before we approve the budget, we'll have 1 more month, and we'll just be shy of 1 month. So we certainly could. I mean, I don't see. I mean, if you guys as council tell me to, certainly, but just from a financial standpoint, I don't see how next year we're going to be over another $1 million. I mean, that's just, it's fast. I mean, that's, you know, if we go $1 million over this year and then another $1 million over that, I mean, unless you guys know something that I don't know. I mean, you know, everything's kind of normalizing out as far as the housing market, so we're keeping an eye on that. Interest rates, I don't know where they're going to go. There's just too many uncertainties that, you know, because sales tax is so behavioral. You know, it's based on what people want to, you know, buy, and, you know, it's behavioral. It's not like property taxes. We could count on those, you know, no matter who owns it. So, but I don't know. We haven't had any major stores coming in that we can predict that the sales tax is going to go up, that I've been made aware of. So, you know, I mean, we certainly could. I just hate to overpromise and underdeliver. So, I mean, we can keep looking at it, and we do. We'll look at it every single day. But, you know, like I said, over the last, I think, 3 to 5 years, we've been about 11% over. So we went in the middle of that and budgeted over 5% over actual. But yes, we'll certainly keep looking at it. And of course, this is, you know, this is y'all's budget. So we're just here to make recommendations. So we certainly could do whatever you guys feel is necessary. Franchise fees will be about flat, be about the same. Licensing and permitting, that's kind of leveling off, like I said from before. We had a lot of the infill housing in the last couple of years that have gone on. Those have kind of leveled off a little bit. We're still getting some of those. We still have some subdivisions that are coming up that have been platted and things like that. So we still have that in there, just not as much as we have had before in the past. Other revenues are going to be your cost allocations, your transfers, things like that. So overall, we'll go from 27.9 to 29.6. So a little, you know, almost a 6% increase in revenues. And that's going to change. So you're going to see different numbers all throughout these presentations. And I tried to go in order of when you guys saw these presentations to kind of bring things back up. But Parks and Recreation, from an M&O standpoint, last year they had $2,078,000 in their budget. This year, with the changes we made so far, they'll be about 2.4, which is a change of 19%. This includes the matching of the 1 cent, which that would also update to the 264 once we finalize everything, which is about a 19% increase there. I think the biggest thing that we added there, besides all the pay plan updates within the personnel side of things, was we included to contract out all of our parks mowing, as opposed to us doing it, and we can get on other projects, because we've got a lot of projects going on in the parks. We're going to have more projects going on with the park implementation fees and things like that. So that's, I think, the biggest change there. They requested the Reese Court Davis, the basketball court, to be resurfaced. So that was one request. Parks engineering goes in line with the park fees, so we want to have everything engineered prior to spending all of that money and kind of do it the right way instead of doing it ourselves. And then updating the cemetery software that we currently have to keep up with our 2 cemeteries that we manage. And that would just be, you know, with the plots and things like, you know, keeping track of all that, all the software to do all that, and the contact information, things like that. On the community development side, their budget was a little over $1 million last year. They would be up to $1.1 million for about an 8.8% increase there. The 2 biggest capital that they requested was the Intergov software, which we currently have MyGov, which doesn't do everything that we need it to do. It was bought years ago. We haven't had updates to it. It's just not what we need. It can't do everything that we need.
What the city website is currently hosted on, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So what we'd like to do is move to Intergov, which is a product of Tyler Technologies, which is what we have financially. It's a pretty substantial investment. So this is the 267. This would be year 1. So we'd have year 2 and year 3. And then after that, we'd have maintenance fees of that, which wouldn't be as high as that. They would be around the same as it would be for MyGov. The biggest change there is pulling all the information from MyGov and putting it into the Intergov system. I didn't sit through the Intergov demonstration, but our IT department did, GP did as well, to see how it fits into everything. It fits into our court system, so any fines that go through our community development will fit into our court system. So it seems like it would seamlessly fit with everything that we already do and step us up to the 21st century, which we're not quite there in that department. So it's a substantial investment. I wish we could have done it years ago. We tried to do it years ago, but just the amount that it was going to take to get MyGov over to a new system was just too much at the time. We could not afford it. And then the GIS update. So we currently don't have a GIS person on staff that keeps up with that. With the growth that we've had, we're behind, honestly. And so we've been working with a third party this year as kind of a pilot program to see if updating our GIS would work, and it has worked really well. And that program has worked really well. So what we estimated, along with the third party, and they're a local engineering firm that helps us with that currently. But this would be a one-time fee. So it'd be $150,000 to get us caught up. And this means for public works, it means for community development, for fire department, for police department. So all of those entities would benefit from this GIS being updated. We looked at the cost in hiring a GIS person for this amount. We could probably get a GIS person for this amount, but in the subsequent years that we'd need a GIS person, this is going to cost us anywhere from maybe $5,000 to $15,000 to $20,000. Because once we get everything updated where it needs to be, in the next couple of years, it's just a maintenance thing. So we'll just need it as we grow. So if we slow down in growth, then we pay the third party less. If we amp up in growth, then we pay them a little bit more, and then we don't have that consistent salary. We'd like to try this, and so that will be something we'll put into the budget. So I think those are two really big things there, but I think they're really two important things for our community development department. On the library side, they'll go from 577 to 763, which is a big change of 32%. But what the biggest piece of that is going to be is, if you'll see that next request, they have currently several part-time positions. They're weird hours. I don't know why they are. That's the only department that does that. But we'd like to transition 2 of those part-time people to full-time positions, and we'd like to do that, and that's at a cost of $90,000. So that's the biggest change that you'll see there. And then also his capital that he requested was the Rocket Reading Pad for $6,000, the Glowforge laser printer for $6,600, and then this isn't in his budget. This is on the facility side, but the library roof needs to be upgraded. Ever since I got here in 2015, this has been on the list to upgrade. It's pretty substantial. This is just an upgrade. To replace the entire roof is about $500,000. But we had somebody look at it, I think at least 2 times, and they suggested this would probably do us and be good for us for another 20 years without having to replace it for $500,000. So they said we could spend $500,000, but if you spend $300,000, you're still getting another roof for about 20 years. So it's been leaking since I've been here in 2015, so we've patched it quite a bit. On the animal control side, they're going to go from $448,000 to $555,000 for a 23% increase. The biggest change there is on the personnel side. We've added a volunteer/rescue coordinator as requested. Down there in the capital requested, which would be year 3, and if we could get 10 kennels, that would be great. With the cost of things the way they are right now, we don't know, so we'd like to at least budget $25,000. If we get 9 kennels, then that's great too, and then we'll just keep on that program. I think we've done 7. We did 7 the first year, 10 the second year, and then we'd like to do 10 this year, if we can, with the prices the way they are, because they change within like 30 days. And then also the animal control exterior building was also requested at a cost of $289,000. This would be an outdoor play area with concrete and turf, and it would have kennels in it, and it would be covered and that kind of thing. So that was also requested. On the CVB side, he went from a little over $300,000 to about $308,000 for a 2.57% increase. The capital that was requested was the shade structure. This is going to be our last year of this, so this I think be year 6 that we've done this. This would complete down the orange field, which is the field closest to the fire station. Unfortunately, they went from about $50,000 to about $90,000 in their cost because of the steel. That's the biggest cost there. Left in there the same things on the Main Street side of $45,000, the tourism distribution of $50,000, which Dole and his tourism board will divvy out those funds. If you guys would like to change that number, then we certainly could. That's just what was in there before. And then also sports tournaments that we would host out at the sports park for about $3,000.
Quick question.
Why
is the shade structure in this part of the budget instead of Parks and Rec?
Because we can take it out of the hot funds, because it improves the sports park, which we host sports tournaments there, which brings in people for the hotel, so we can use it out of that. So it meets the criteria to be able to do that, infrastructure-wise, and that's where the other ones have come from as well. It's from the hot funds. There we go. Venue management went from $243,000 to $308,000 for a 26% increase. Micah obviously came in kind of towards the end, but he was able to still give us some input, so we added a few special events there. So I think that's the biggest increase besides anything else in that section. So added a few more shows that the city would take risk for, which was different than what we had done in the past. On the Main Street side, went from $169,000 to $175,000 for a slight increase of 3.5%. Only capital requested there would be the solar lighting, and so that would continue what has been done in front of Land and Winery, and so we probably do some on the Washington Street side, and things like that, and just continue that program. So we'll continue asking for that kind of a pay-as-you-go with the solar lighting. And the solar lighting's been great, so, and the prices haven't gone too crazy with those, so I think we'll be in good shape there. From the fire side, they'll go from $7 million to $7.6 million for an 8% increase. The biggest increase you're going to see there is the pay plan updates, which I have a slide later on that we'll talk about what we did on the pay plan so far. So that's going to be the biggest increase there. On the fire truck pay-as-you-go, we've been putting $250,000 in every year, so we decided to up that to $300,000. Number one, because costs have gone up, and then number two, lead times have gone up, so we'd like to be able to, we did the lease agreement to buy the fire truck in 2023, and then we'd like to replenish that fund a little bit faster, so we added $50,000 there. He requested a brush truck 4 replacement at $200,000, which we're looking at maybe doing some FEMA funds with that, so we can replace that in that budget. And then the SCBA portable fill station, which is at $150,000. So they don't have to go back to the station and refill things. On the police side, they went from $8.8 million to $9.9 million. That's a 12% change. Also, pay plan. Personnel requested patrol officers. We requested 3 in the budget and 2 communications officers. I know we talked about during the presentation to kind of keep that going, so we're not having to add 15 at one time. Capital requested the Bearcat armored vehicle for $327,000. The drone, $7,500, the rifle lights for the TAC and the patrol, and then also the pistol lights for patrol, the body armor for the TAC team at $16,000, and the FTO software is the field training software that they like to add to keep track of that. Currently, they just do that by hand, and they pop it in a file and go from there, so it'll just be a little bit easier from a software standpoint, and a little more efficient. Streets and traffic is going to go from 1.8 to 2.1 for a 15% increase. They requested 2 streets workers here at $115,000. Capital requested the citywide drainage at $300,000, which we had in there last year. The valley gutters and sidewalks, which we also had in this current year, at $250,000. The city work software at $75,000, which it was going to be with Intergov. We can include Public Works and Community Development on that, so we can either go with Intergov for Community Development and City Works for Public Works, or we can just go Intergov for all of it. So we're still looking at that as well. And then they also requested a dump truck at $180,000, which FYI 3 years ago those used to be about $90,000. So just FYI. Yes.
I've got a question about that. Previously, I think we were at $200,000 or $2 million for the SIP fund, and when we decided to sell those bonds and use the SIP funds to amortize the bonds, we still talked about allocating $500,000 a year or so for repayment. Is that included in this?
Yes, that's included in that 2.1.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we've left that in there. So yes. Yep. Along with the drainage and the sidewalks. So that's in addition to that. So yes, that is in there. Let's see. From an engineering standpoint, went from $280,000 to $321,000 for a 14% increase. They did request a project manager. They have several projects. And if you'll look below there, the capital requested. This is not the only capital that was requested. They had a long list of probably 30 or 40 things that were requested, from water lines to sewer lines to roads and things like that. These were just the big high points. And so the gravity sewer for Highway 66 was requested at $1.8 million. Transmission line replacement just all over town was about $3 million. Upgrading to a 20-inch transmission replacement, $1.1 million. South side water line replacement at $400,000. Washington Street water replacement at $700,000, and then Caddo Street water, upgrading it from a 12 to a 24 would be $2.4 million. So those are just some of the high points there. Water treatment, they had a lot of requests as well, so I kind of fit what I thought I could fit in there. So from the M&O side, they were at 2.7 and went to 3 for 11% increase there. Replacing the 2.5 million gallon clear well out there would be about $5 million. Rehabbing Caddo Tower would be about 1.1. If we included 2 industrial ground storage tanks instead of the elevated tanks, which we don't have any ground storage out there right now. It's just the elevated tank, which is too small. That's at $7.3 million. you've got your levee repair, there's several pump repairs in there, and then also if we remove the sludge out of number 2, that'd be about $2.1 million. So there's a lot still to do from the water treatment side. But we've made huge strides on our water treatment plant currently from where we were just 3 years ago. So this is just a continuation of continuing to upgrade that. And we made huge strides at the Tawakoni pump station. I think Press told me that they dredged out of our canal that we get our water from, I think, like 34 feet of silt. That was, yeah, so it was pretty substantial. So that's going to be huge for us, especially this time of year. So, but on the water distribution side, they're going to go from 2.6 to 3.2 for a little over 18% increase. They'd like to have a material storage building, which we currently don't have at the service center, to store any kind of thing. If you've ever driven out there, you'll see kind of everything's kind of stored in our yard. Nothing's really covered. There's a few things that we have covered, mostly our equipment, our expensive equipment, but if we had some storage for materials, that'd be helpful. A couple of trailers, a GPS data collector, which would help us collect all the data to put into the GIS as far as where water lines are. A lot of that is in our workers' heads that have been here for so long, and so we'd like to put that somewhere so that we have it, because a lot of those are getting close to retirement. AMI meters, about $250,000 requested there. You will see something on your agenda tonight for us to apply for a grant for the AMI meters. So we're kind of trying to get all aspects to be able to, funding aspects to be able to get that implemented. And then they also requested a backhoe at $175,000. On the wastewater collection side, I'll go from 984 to 1.1 for a 16% increase. Construction materials, if you guys will remember, we put that in every year. I think we started out at $250,000. That's just to replace sewer lines or water lines anywhere. So that's just construction materials. Obviously, construction materials have gone up, so we increased that cost there. They also requested a dump truck at $180 and then a skid steer with attachments at $175. On the wastewater treatment side, went from 1.8 to 2.1 for almost a 13% increase there. Spare fine screen for the headworks at $290 and a blower motor for $40,000. Just continuing the maintenance there. That since that plant's not as old as everything else, but we want to keep up with that. On the airport side, $207,000 to $220 on the M&O side for a change of 5.9. Capital has been requested as GA apron expansion at $2.6 million. The airport retention pond at $2.4 million. We have a lot of drainage issues out there. And then the runway radio renewal at $35,000. So we do have some fund balance in that fund, but the drainage is going to be the biggest issue we want to address first before. But we are going to probably work on and be able to fit in some of the design for the retention pond and for the apron expansion. We've got 2 big projects at about $2 million that are going on in the current budget year for additional taxiway space and additional parking space. On the IT side, we'll go from 954 to 1.1. The biggest change you're going to see there is that IT technician 1 at $78,000. We've got 4 people total on the IT side. 2 of those are eligible to try currently right now and probably will in the next 2 or 3 years. So we'd like to add at least 1 technician to start getting that knowledge out of them to be able to, when they do leave, we can succession plan and just fit those right in. So we'd include that IT technician now, and when they would retire, we wouldn't fill those positions if we didn't need them at that time. Obviously, we'd look at it. Computer replacements at $50,000. We do that every year, so we'd like to leave that in there. The patrol laptop lease is coming up. So that's a $34,000 expenditure a year. The city laptop lease, which is 30 laptops, we did that during COVID to be able to, people can work from home, which we're still having to utilize that, unfortunately. The desktop leases, we still do lease 57 of those at $37,000. Our server lease will be up. Our disaster recovery and backup facility at $55,000. We think this is probably going to be #1 priority that we'll talk about because this will allow us, currently our servers are backed up at the PD and at this building. What this would do would allow us to back it in a separate location within the city, and also a separate location way off, probably like way up north. And so at any point in time, if anything were to happen from a disaster standpoint or cybersecurity, we'd be able to get our information within within 24 hours? Yeah, so we'd lose a day's and that's it. And so we could bring everything back up and we'd be running again. So we think this is pretty important. And then also we put in there the Surface Pros for you guys as city council. So instead of having the iPads, we would change those out to Surface Pros, and that's a cost about $13,000. On the pay plan, so I've been talking about, we've looked at the pay plan since about 4 years ago now, so we've looked at this every year. We've looked at police, we've looked at fire, we've looked at the non-civilian employees, so we've looked at everything. So the goal there is to have every job code in the top 50% of our comparison cities, which obviously the market's changing very quickly, so I know Sherry talked about that changing, I think, last meeting. The second goal is to have every job not be in the bottom of the competitive cities. Obviously, we know we can't be at the top of the competitive cities. We're not going to be there because we're just not as large as they are, so we understand that. But we can offer other things to combat that, which has helped us. And then every job to be comparable to the employee that holds that position. So what we mean when we say that is, we can't have a job where somebody comes in and starts at the same time that somebody's been here for 20 years. So let's say we have an IT technician 1, 2, and 3. Well, that person that's been here 20 years, if they're good, they should be at the 3. We hire in somebody at a 1, which most of our positions before we looked at that didn't have any of those steps. And so what those people are looking for is, a ladder to move up to. So that's what we're trying to build, is a ladder in all of our departments, which we didn't have previously. So that's what we mean when we say that. And so we probably started reviewing these pay plans in February, and we asked each department head to look at each one and tell us their recommendation of what they think and how they could hire. So we did that. So when we sat down with fire department, we sat down with the PD, we decided on a 5% increase, and this is just to their pay plan flat out. So this is just to the pay plan, it has nothing to do with merit or anything like that. So at 5% increase for FD was $155,000, PD was $292,000. Clear career path for each position, like I talked about. Succession planning gives us some flexibility, and then the non-civil service updates on the general fund side were $102,000, and you'll see I have one more slide that I can share with you too. And then on the water and wastewater fund, $57,000. Obviously, we don't have as many employees on that side. And then the pay plan. Okay, so in the pay plan, when you'll see it in the proposed budget, we're going to offer, on top of the pay plan changes, we're going to propose a 5% merit increase. Workers' comp was a huge increase on the fire department and the PD side because there's some legislation in there that COVID changed a couple of things, so that really increased not just our rate, but everybody's rate. So that workers' comp rate really skyrocketed like it had never before done. We had a couple cases too, so a couple of claims that really hurt us. Absorbed the health insurance increase for employees, which right now currently we think is at 8%, or we're budgeting at 8%. Hopefully our insurance broker can get that lowered down to hopefully around 6%, but we'll see that in the next couple of months. And so the departments in their departmental budgets went from being charged $12,400 to $13,000 per employee. That has nothing to do with the employees, what they pay extra. This is just for employee only. The TMRS rate increased from 11% to 16%. The big change there is because we factored in a 30% repeating COLA for the retiree adjustment. So our rate went from 11% to 16%, so that's pretty substantial. Police, we increased assignment pay from $240,000 to $1,200 to be more competitive with some other departments. The FTO, which is the field training officer, we increased that pay from $600 to $2,400. We felt that was important because we're having, that's the first line of when new recruits come in. They spend after they're out of the academy, they spend that 6 months with that FTO officer. And so number one, we have some officers that are constantly doing it and getting burned out. So we wanted to give them some incentive for some different folks to be able to do that. So increase that, and that's a little more competitive with our surrounding cities as well. On all employees, so all certification pay increased from $50 to $100 per month. All bilingual pay we increased from $50 to $75 per month, and then we included a new CDL certification was added, and that's at $100 per month. So that's been really good for us because we have several jobs on the public works and the park side that we need CDLs. So that's been good for us. Personnel additions, here's kind of just a snapshot. If you'll see the 12 little people at the bottom, that's the total added. So patrol officers 3, full-time there, communication operators 2, full-time there, volunteer rescue coordinator, recruiting coordinator in HR, the IT technician that we talked about. On the fleet side, the oil, lube, and tire tech, so that we don't have to farm that out anymore. 2 utility workers on the water and wastewater side. A golf course manager, which is a trainee because we have an employee that's going to be retiring pretty soon from there, so we want to get that training out of his head as well. Building attendant, we want to move. We currently have a part-time to a full-time, employee that's going to retire soon as well. And so if we can make that a full-time, and that building attendant will help cover things in the Civic Center and also in this building, so we're not having to do it with the custodians. GP talked about that in his presentation. And then there's those 2 at the bottom there, part-time to full-time, adult services associate, and then an adult services librarian. And then that's just a snapshot. I won't spend too much time on that, but that's just a snapshot of the actual cost. You guys have this presentation in your packet as well, so it just kind of gives you a breakdown of each one of those and what they cost for additional. And that's the total cost with benefits and everything. And then this one's really hard to see, but this just, and I know you probably see it better on your iPads, but it just gives you a picture of all those additions that we just talked about. So it gives you the numbers, and you can compare to 2021, 21, 22, and what we're proposing. So if you see, you'll see how everything has changed as far as from personnel and in what department. I know it's easier to see on this one. I don't know why it's so terrible to see on those. And then this is going to be your water wastewater fund, and then all your other funds down there. And then your total is going to be at the bottom there. So you comparing your 275 to your 290, and then your 316 to your 328. If you're looking at just overall total, or if you're just looking at full time. Vehicle replacement. This was a big initiative 3 years ago when we started leasing our vehicles. So our total 2023 enterprise expense is going to be $809,000. The continuation of existing leases is about $542,000, and then new leases or down payments is going to be $267,000. Now keep in mind, this is probably an overestimation on our expenses because we still haven't gotten our 2022 vehicles, and we're 7 months in the year. So in reality, we're budgeting for 12 months of a lease payment because we expect them to get them sooner. But GP's done a good job working with Chris and working with Enterprise. They do a good job with us on letting us know when we're going to get those vehicles. So like next year, he's only going to budget, I think, like 7 months or 6 months because we're not getting our vehicles like we should. We're ordering them as soon as we can.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they have ordering windows, and you can do it in hours, and that's it. And if you miss it, you miss it. That's the bottom line. That's what the manufacturers are telling Enterprise. And so what we're able to do this year, and this is what we're going to budget for, swapping out 16 trucks at $128,000, 7 Tahoes, 2 additional Tahoes for those police officers that we'll be adding, and then 3 additional Malibus, which we're just, if we can't get Tahoes, we're having to go to Malibus. We had to go to those Ford Interceptors this year, which we don't want to do, and we tried, I think 3 years ago we got rid of all of those and just went with Tahoes, but we can't get anything else. So that's just kind of in the market we're in. Added the IT van, obviously if we only have 1 vehicle there that they utilize, so if we add another person, the 2 vehicles would be helpful. And then community development, a lease addition there. So in saying all that, down at the bottom, if you look at the offset of that, if we get rid of all of those, the 16 and the 7, swapping out all those cars, what that'll bring in at auction is anywhere from $106,000 to $134,000. Max, it could be about $220,000. This is just outright selling our cars, which is a good deal. Next year, we'll be able to offset that even more because now some of our leased vehicles be coming off of our lease, and now we're selling a 3 or 4 year old vehicle. And so it's going to start offsetting it even more. So it's going to start self-sustaining itself. This vehicle fund will. And so, I think it's really good. Been a great program. See, I think a lot of other cities, surrounding cities, even Hunt County, I think Commerce, everybody around us has kind of gone to it. And our employees enjoy it because they get to drive nice trucks, and we get to buy 23 cars as opposed to 3 or 4 cars every year. Our new ones, or lease them, I should say, not buy.
Much more reliable.
Yes, much more reliable. Our maintenance costs are down. So really that tech that we're asking for is really going to be doing tire changes and oil changes and just the maintenance stuff on it. So, and it's been getting harder and harder to do all that maintenance stuff. I don't know if they're short on workers, but it just takes those, you know, I don't know if you've ever, I have something wrong with my car and I still don't have a part for it. So it's just getting harder and harder. So this is just, I'm not going to go into detail on this one, but this is just kind of everything that we've put into the budget so far, and kind of where it fits into y'all's goals, the 1 through 6. So that was just kind of a snapshot, what department it belongs to, and then the total cost over there. And then important days to remember, obviously August 9th, I'll present the actual proposed budget to you. We'll get that to you in electronic format, and you'll have a physical budget book, and I'll do a presentation on that. It is September 13th. We'll have a public hearing on the tax rate, on the budget. You'll hopefully adopt the budget, ratify the tax rate, and adopt the tax rate. So that's the plan for a timeline. So that will give you a little over a month to, and in between though, when we have those meetings in between, we'll go through options. If you guys have any suggestions or anything along the way that you see that maybe is not added in that proposed, we can look at all those different options as we go. So other than that, I think that's my last slide. If y'all have questions, comments.
I'll just say that I think the budget process so far has been much more comprehensive and informative than we've been used to in the past. I'll say that. And I want to compliment you and the staff for everything you've done up to this point.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And I do want to note too, I know last time when you guys asked about the no new revenue rate, obviously that was preliminary. You know, it wasn't, that's not what it is. Well, it's estimated, since we got our certified values yesterday, we as staff have an estimate of the no new revenue rate at 567. Now we still have to get verification from the appraisal district because they send us our actual no new revenue rate and what it is, and we won't get that until next week. So just as an FYI, what I told you last time, I told you it was based on a lot of estimations, which it was. We got our final values yesterday. We've calculated it, but that's still estimated. So it's at, we estimated, staff estimated at 567,428. So that's still preliminary, but I will have the no new revenue rate when I propose the budget to you guys, and officially from the Hunt County Appraisal District, just so y'all know.
Okay, if there are no questions.
Just one real quick,
Okay.
Mayor, if you don't mind. I saw Ty come in. Hi, Ty. On the airport slide, I'm just curious about federal funding on things like the pond, retention pond and things like that. Is there any money out there that we possibly can go get grants for some of that? Or?
Yes, there are grant fundings out there. It's Airport Capital Improvement Program, and there are fundings. There's several types of funding out there. We've applied for them. We've yet to get any airport capital improvement programs from FAA or TxDOT at this time. So we also have RAMP grants, routine airport maintenance programs that can help with that, but that's a 50-50 share and up to $100,000 a year.
Is there any reasoning given to you when you don't? Do you hear back?
We're competing against all the airports with that money. So when you apply for grants or airport capital improvements with that program, you submit all the paperwork to TxDOT, and they select all the projects from everybody's input. So. Anything else?
Thank you, Ty.
Yeah, and to add to that, Terry, we have our federal lobbyist, Josh Gabaton, and he's in constant, actually I think we got a couple emails today about some FAA, you know, because the president, I don't even remember how many billion it was, but allocated so much for airports, and so he's trying to grab at that money as well too. And they haven't decided at this point who's going to administer it, either the FAA or the TxDOT. So until they make some decisions, and then we have some projects that we're ready to submit. We've already submitted for the there's an economic development grant that we've applied for Majors Road. So if we can get that grant, so we're still working on that. So we're working on grants in addition to what Ty said all the time, especially for the airport. So, and like Ty said, we're competing with the international airports. So, you know, the DFWs and those places like that. So, yeah, so we get a little piece of the pie, but hopefully we can get a bigger piece with Josh's help. So,
thank you.
I have one question. I didn't want to interrupt the presentation, but how far along are we with AMI meters, and how much further do we have to go?
Ooh, how far along would you say we are, Press, percentage-wise?
If you don't have the number, just get it next time, I
Probably
guess.
about 10%.
Yeah.
10%.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge project. Now,
Yeah.
you know, that grant that you're gonna talk, that press is gonna ask you guys to apply for today. I mean, it can be anywhere from $1 million to 10 million. So, I mean, we've got over 4,500 connections, water meter connections. So replacing all those at one time obviously would be a big job. So that's why incrementally we've just been doing how many a year for the last, I think, 2 years.
We can't get them right
We can't
now.
get them right now. That's the problem right now.
Yeah, they got an 81-week delay in getting them.
The AMI, getting the actual physical AMI meters. So that's been the whole
Do we have
thing this
the-
far.
Do we have the app for the ones that we have, where the software in the app, where people can actually see how much water they're using, and that sort of thing? Or
Yeah, we're not using that just yet,
Okay.
through Juice. I think they're still working on their electric AMI meters,
Okay.
and they're working out all the kinks with that, and I haven't
They
gotten
being
it.
Juice.
Yeah, with
Okay.
Juice. So, I mean, all that program would coincide and work with Juice, since they do our
Yeah.
billing, so we'd work together on those sides. But we're systematically still replacing the physical infrastructure to be able to do that, so.
Very interesting presentation at TML last year. I know some of our members who were there saw that.
Mhm.
How Jacksonville had completely changed out to AMI meters and how much administrative cost it saved them.
Yeah.
It's also a great public relations deal, because people could see how much water they were using at that instant or whatever.
Yeah.
They could find water leaks and that sort of thing. Of course, Jacksonville's much smaller than we are, but
Yeah.
I still think it's worth it.
Well, hopefully with this grant, if we can get some funds out of that grant, it's a 50-50 matching grant, so we can get let's just say a $3 million project for half the price, that's something to look forward to. So hopefully we can get that grant,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
All right.
I have a question for Carol. We have a reason to go into executive session for about 2 minutes.
Mhm.
Could we just clear this room and have the executive session here and then come back into work session? And then, or not?
That's up to you guys.
Well, if the council's okay with that, can we do that? Okay, if you're okay, then I'd like everybody to leave the room if you would for just a moment. Thank you, I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
Noel, maybe they'll take you back.
Do you
The
sit back
peanut
out there with
gallery.
them?
Come back in just a second, I'm sorry. Chairman Collins will provide the report on that, please.
All right, council. The committee met and decided to make the following grants from the sanitization fund. Keep Greenville Beautiful at the amount of $20,000. From the general fund, Drug-Free Greenville at $7,000, and Senior Citizens Resource and Public Transit Center at $20,000.
Okay, and if there are no questions about that, that's the report, and so at this point, we'll go into executive session in conference room. 6:05, Tuesday, July 26th, and ask Reverend Freeman to present the invocation. Thank you. Please stand.
And we bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, and we thank you for allowing us to come to meet, to discuss the city business, and to represent our representatives of the community. Lord, we just ask you to guide us and direct us, and that we do your will and not our will. And I pray that you just bless this city council. Bless those that come in here and come and talk about the issues they have on their heart. I just ask that you just guide us and direct us, that we work together to achieve one goal, is to do your will and to serve your people. This I pray in the mighty name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Freeman. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are no presentations tonight, and I'll call your attention to two points over in the agenda: citizens to be heard and public testimony. Citizens are to be heard on items that citizens are invited to address the council on items that are not already scheduled for public hearings or listed on the agenda. Public testimony occurs when citizens are invited to address the council on topics already on the agenda, starting tonight with item 7A. If you'd like to address the council, please complete a citizen's comment card and present it to the city secretary. Thank you. Are there citizens to be heard?
Yes, John Kelso.
John Kelso, 6005 Forum Drive, Greenville, 75402. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for listening.
And one of the things we'd like to do is we'd like to start getting these cell phones or some kind of contact information. Are we doing that with everybody?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I won't call you back.
Can you put a second up now?
Is it on? Oh, it's on. Okay. I don't know if it was last meeting or 2 meetings ago, you approved the comprehensive plan. Thank you. Yay. Now that you've had a chance to review it and approve it, I was going to read a few quotes out of it that might be appropriate. Under the land use guidance, retail. Currently, minimal retail uses are located near residential areas. Consider neighborhood retail uses near future residential developments and a strategic infill development areas surrounding existing communities. Consider residential developments that include Central Park areas. I just threw that in. Really want to talk about retail tonight, but can't resist talking about parks, right? Under commercial, it says existing retail land uses are located along Wesley Street, a major retail corridor. And Joe Ramsey, consider promoting future retail infill development opportunities in North Greenville, downtown Greenville, and FM 1570, Jack Kenny Boulevard. Okay, the reason I was bringing this to your attention, I've noticed there's been some signs on 1570. There's a lot of land on south of 1570, just pasture land, empty land that swings on around down to the south and to the east. And there's been some signs about changing from ag to SF3, and then I've seen signs from ag to SF2, and I'm assuming somebody's going to have a proposal here for you one of these days for you to vote on. But you might consider what's in your comprehensive plan. It says we need retail in the neighborhoods, especially down on the south end. There's a ton of neighborhood development going on along 1570 and existing, neighborhood. That's all that is down there. There is no retail. On the corner of 34 and 1570, there's a gas station and a little strip center. So I know you don't like planned development. I'm not sure why, but I know but maybe PD is the thing to do for this down there, or at least consider along 1570 frontage, maybe that ought to be retail instead of another neighborhood development of residential. Just something to consider if it ever comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilson.
Reginald.
Good afternoon. I'm Reginald Kitchen, 1403 Glendale Street, Greenville, Texas, 75401. I have two things I want to talk about. First, I want to thank Councilwoman Christian for stepping up and getting our trash dumped on Glendale Street. They, for some reason, didn't want to dump it. They bagged out. I watched them drive in, and they bagged out without dumping any trash. And their excuse was the traffic. Those cars have been parked in the same spot for years. They move sporadically throughout the day. And then they say they dumped half of it, but they didn't. We have a Holiday Hills thing where we discuss if trash is being dumped or whatever. When you call them, they kept giving you different excuses. And they, once Kristen got in contact with them, they sent Dre and Blake out, who normally dumps recycle. They never had an issue driving through there, and they didn't understand why they didn't want to drive through there. But I wanted to publicly thank her for stepping up and taking care of it in a timely manner, and so did the people of Glendale. They want to thank them for that. And my second thing I want to talk about is the lakes. I've heard several times that y'all supposed to be coming up with some type of plan so that we could fish at number 4 and number 5, but there's been nothing. And I've sit and listened for months. It's been 2 years, and we still are not really able to fish. We go out there, people come in from out of town, and they're forced to turn around because they've heard about the lakes, but there's no place to fish. You can only fish right there, basically where they dump the water once they get through filtering it. There's nothing really there. The fish are around, and nobody wants to walk in this heat to go there, you know what I mean? So if y'all could come up with some type of solution or some type of plan, y'all said they had cameras out there. We're not the ones doing illegal dumping. We're not the ones causing problems, but we're the one being punished for it. So I mean, like, I'm willing to sit down and talk or whatever. I'm available to talk to you guys to come up with some type of plan, because people are suffering because somebody else's problems. You know what I mean? So if y'all could put that on y'all agenda, talk about it, discuss it, I'll sit down. I'll have a couple of fishermen sit down, young and old. We just want to fish, basically.
I think we were gonna have that on the agenda
Yeah.
soon, right?
Yeah.
We're going to set up a subcommittee.
Oh, yeah, subcommittee meeting, that's right.
Correct.
Okay, because I get told about it a lot.
Make sure we have your contact information, the subcommittee may want to talk to you at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any other?
Yes. Mel Thomas.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members. Neil Thomas with Motorola Solutions. First, I want to thank you guys for trusting Motorola Solutions and voting to enter into a contract with Motorola to provide your first responders with a new mission-critical public safety radio communication system. The teams have been working closely with your radio committee to begin that process, and they're making some great progress in getting that system deployed. That said, we were taken a little bit aback to see that there was an agenda item on executive session for tonight around a referendum and a potential protest initiative to overturn the council's decision to move forward, or to potentially overturn the contract that's in place with Motorola and has been executed in June. We're a little surprised by that, but at the same time, we also kind of looked into it as best as we understood, and we hope that you guys also review it and understand that maybe it doesn't quite apply to this contract with a vendor that's active and has already been executed. That said, look, we're not here to tell you anything other than what you expect, other than, look, we're here to provide the best communication systems for your first responders and do what it is that you guys set forth and approved back in June. And I know there's been a lot of talk about potential cost savings, and we saw L3 executives or representatives show up a few weeks later to talk about 7 sites versus 3 sites again. To clarify, our Robert on my team presented this morning to Hunt County to provide them with a proposal to join the city of Greenville system that provides them the 2 sites similar to what L3 was proposing for them and they had approved. That would equate to a similar system, 5 sites versus 5 sites, no additional sites, And actually, our cost proposal was $400,000 less than what Hunt County had approved to move forward with L3 Harris. Between the $400,000 that Hunt County is going to save, the $300,000 that Greenville saved by going with Motorola versus the L3 proposal, that's $700,000 of cost savings that both the city and county have saved the taxpayers in just costs contracted to vendors. And beyond that, the county had offered an additional $2 million, which we've heard a lot about. The county's offering $2 million to have a shared system between county and city, all the benefits, and we agree, there's a lot of benefits with having a shared system. That $2 million still exists. We think that $2 million should still come to the city, and you guys should still have one system, one shared system. So we hope that Hunt County decides to elect to join the City of Greenville system, and you guys continue to move forward with the path with Motorola. And that $2 million is still taxpayer savings for the city of a Greenville resident. They're both Greenville and Hunt County taxpayers, so that $2 million now no longer needs to be spent. So that's taxpayer savings for a resident for Greenville. So thank you again, appreciate the time, and we look forward to continuing to be a partner with the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizens to be heard?
No, and there are no other cards either.
Okay, so there are no public testimony. Okay, I will be calling for that then. Let's move to 7A. Consideration action on ordinance authorizing final payment and increased purchase order for construction contract for Tricon Services. And it's Preston, y'all know where he is. You want to invite your staff in here? They're sitting outside. I don't know if they'd like to
That's up
come
to
in or
them.
not. Huh?
That's up to them.
Okay.
They'd like to.
We hide out there, come on. Yes, Mayor, council members, this is the final payment for Tricon for the Sale Street construction, which has been completed. I think the road turned out extremely well. I think everybody's really pleased with it. So this is their final payment on that. And the 2000 bond, was it 15 or 18?
For Sale Street?
Yeah.
19.
19 bond issue. For Sale Street and Stonewall, we came in under the bond amount. So I'm very pleased with that. I'm pleased with the construction activity and the way the road rides and the drainage works well now. So
Very nice. Rode a couple times this weekend in general.
So
Very nice.
this is their final payment, so asking for approval for that.
Okay. There being no public testimony, are there any questions for Chris regarding this issue? If not, what is the pleasure of the council?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, please vote. And it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Item 7A, consideration action on ordinance authorizing construction services agreement with Texas Bid for reconstruction of Grand Park parking lot. Brad.
Yes, Mayor, Council, good evening. So this is concerning the parking lot at Grand Park. As you know, we did a project, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and redid that park in 2012. And a couple of years ago, we noticed the deterioration of the parking lot. So we reached out to our engineering staff here, and they determined that we needed reconstruction. And so we sent it out to bid May 28th and June 4th, and we had public bid on June 4th, or public opening on June 14th. And we got 2 quotes back. Texas bid came in at $178,233, and then PaveCon at $182,737. We spoke with engineering, and they felt good about, had a good working relationship with Texas bid, both of them really, but they didn't have anything negative to say with Texas bid. This was an approved project in this fiscal year. We actually approved $93,400 for this project. And we were able to find $84,833 in my personnel account to transfer over to cover the cost of the project. So,
Any questions for Brad?
So does this mean that every 2 to 5 years we'll be reconstructing the parking lot for Grand Park?
No, this will last a good 15, 18 years or longer.
It hasn't, how long has it been there now?
it's been there 10 years.
So this is a standard mill and overlay.
No, we're going to reconstruct the base material and put in flex base and build it a little bit stronger than what it was built originally.
So it still have the same structure that it has now, just upgraded pretty much?
It just won't have potholes.
Good. Any other questions for Brad? If not, what is the pleasure of the council regarding this issue?
Move that we approve.
Second.
Motion second, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to resolutions, A, consideration action on the order canceling the September 6, 2022 special election. I don't think Carol needs to opine on this necessarily. I think everybody understands what's happening. So what is the pleasure of the council regarding this issue?
Make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
Motion second, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Item 8B, consideration action on a resolution requesting funding from the U.S. Department of the Interior Bureau of Reclamation for a water smart water grant. Chris.
Yes, sir. This is what Summer talked about earlier in her presentation, that we're trying to go after this grant to help us pay for the AMI meters. It's a 50-50 grant. We've been working on it last couple months. Looks like we can get the money. It's just going through the government process of going after these grants. So I have to have a letter or resolution that council is in favor of it and supporting this to complete our application.
We're going to write this grant ourselves. Is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. We've been working on this grant. I have a consultant working with me on it.
Okay.
And we've been working through our Josh, through our federal lobbyists too. So we've been hitting it from every angle we can hit it from.
Any questions for Chris?
What do you mean by 50-50 grant?
We pay 50%, they pay 50%. And it's anywhere from 2 million up to 10 million.
Any other questions for Chris? What is the pleasure of the council?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion 2 seconds. Please vote.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Consent calendar, item 9A is the city council meetings. You have city council meeting minutes. You have those before you. Are there any questions or suggestions regarding those issues? If not, what is the pleasure of the council?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion.
I forgot to add that up there. I forgot to put that up
So
there.
you'll have to
Oh,
do it by
okay.
hand.
Please vote by.
Who seconded?
I did.
Then, sorry.
Okay, and it passes unanimously, okay. City staff report, city council reports, June monthly financials, GP, is he here? Good.
He's hiding out there with the rest
Yeah, I'm out
of them.
there hiding.
This is you?
Yes, that's him.
I think so. Yeah. All right, so we'll be reviewing the June comprehensive monthly financial report, and then just as a reminder, at this point, we're 75% through the current fiscal year. This is the breakdown of our general fund revenues and expenditures. Revenues at this point are almost at 23 million, or 81% of expected collections. And then the keynote here when looking at these figures is I think this is the first time at this point through the fiscal year where our sales tax number there, a little above 8 million, is actually higher than our property tax number at just below 8 million. And I think last year when we reached that point, it was right when I started, so not until the final month. So here we are in June, and we already see that sales tax passing our property tax, which shows how well we're doing on our sales tax. And then our expenditures are at about 23.5 million, or 74% of budgeted expectations. And then when you take a look at that chart there, it's our biggest bucket there is public safety at 12.6 million, and then non-departmental behind that at 4.2 million. So then again, when you think 75% through the year, those are good for the revenues being at 81 and our expenses being at 74% for the year. This is a review of that sales tax number. Year-to-date through June, sales tax collections are at 1.3 million, or 19% when compared to fiscal year-to-date 2021 through June. This is that chart that shows the year collection year-to-date through June since 2011. Our sales tax target is a little above 9 million. Year-to-date actual is 7.7 million, which leaves 1.3 left to collect in order to meet budget, which we should easily do. This is looking at kind of the current period collections as far as the city portion
and that amount was $870,260 remitted for June, an increase of a little above 6% compared to June of 2021. And then as a reminder, these were collected in April, reported in May to the state, and then received by the city in June. This is that chart provided by the state as well that I really don't like the color scheme on it. I think I'm going to eventually chart it myself, but this is what we have to work with for now. And this just shows that net payment received by the city year over year. So you can see that big jump from 2020, and then we surpassed the amount received in 2021 there as well. This is a look at our water and sewer revenues. Through June, we're at a little above 12 million. We're 75% of budgeted expectations, which is where we need to be, 75% through the year. And then a breakdown of that 12.1 million number is our water is at 5.4 million, wastewater at 4.7 million, and then other fees, charges, and sales at 1.9 million. And then that chart there compares it to last year. This is a review of the hotel motel occupancy tax. In June 2022, that came in at a little above 75,000, which this is the first time we've actually seen a decrease since I've been here when comparing year-to-date June of 2021, but only by 3%. And then if you look at that chart again, it's the same story where we're kind of just trending along with where we're at next year. And that green one you can kind of throw out because that was a COVID year, but we're still trending the same as last year, just right at that same number. And then does anybody have any questions or any comments? Nope.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, Summer?
Yeah, this will be the updated status report for July. If you look at the waste connections, not much improvement. Actually, for June, it got a little bit worse for first complaints. The second and third and so on complaints are getting a little bit better. Contractor utility cuts were at 45, a little bit down from 52 last month. The potholes were down substantially from 49 to 32. Street sweeping in the miles actually jumped up, not quite as much as April, but went from 16 to 42 for the month of June. And then the mowed areas, they're all mowed 100%. Hopefully with the grass the way it is now, it's not having to be mowed as much. That's for June and July, middle part of July. The line of sight, this is just the intersections that were cleared. Cleared about 8 of those in June, just for cars that are driving in those certain intersections that aren't always cleared by TxDOT. Sign in place, looks like they did about 34 signs. There wasn't any neighborhoods or anything that we did this time, was there? Okay, so this is just your normal run-of-the-mill replacing signs. We did include some no parking signs in certain places for some safety areas over off of Center Point, so that could be included in there, that there's a lot more signs that were being replaced or added. And then we're kind of at the same place we are as far as the raw water line, just still working on buying additional pipe. Obviously, we haven't gotten any substantial update as far as from the pipe supplier, so we're kind of still sitting where we were about a month ago. So we'll just keep updating that as we get updated. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any.
I've got a question regarding potholes. I noticed, I don't remember what the number was, but it was
49 to 32.
yeah. Okay.
This one?
Yeah.
The in-house repairs or the
Yeah,
utility
the
cuts?
in-house potholes, we had 32. That seems low. Is it because we can't get asphalt every day we try to get it, or is that still the reason?
Yeah, asphalt's hard to get. We've curtailed back some of the hours because of this heat. I mean, you get around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 105. You get on the asphalt, 115, 120. So we kind of curtail what we do. We try to get as much done as we can earlier in the mornings. But we still have a problem getting asphalt from RK Hall.
So some days we go there and we can't get asphalt.
Right, we call them, they're not making it today, or, they're making something else. So, but yeah, that's part of our problem.
Is that our only supplier?
Our only other supplier would be Terrell, which is a fairly long trip to get asphalt and come back with it. So what we're doing, RK Hall asphalt is adequate for our pothole patching, but it's just, like I said, sometimes it's hit or miss.
Okay.
Where are we patching most of these potholes at? I know all over the city we have them really bad, but is there like a distinguished area that has the worst potholes?
No, it's everywhere. I don't know that it's a distinguished area. And some of the potholes, I mean, we would agree that, you know, we're not replacing them, we're just patching them as best we can because they're on the road list to be replaced, so we don't want to, you know, fix them, you know, so it's temporary.
And then these areas where we have potholes, is it like traffic trucks or is it weather related?
It is,
I
it's
think
everything.
everything, yeah. The way it, with the base of it, you know, you can look in some places, it's probably the buses and the big trucks and the UPS trucks that are going by. But if it wasn't built right the first time, then, you know, you have certain spots. I mean, we have that on all our roads. So I can't really explain why some of the road is good and some of it's bad. I don't know. You know, because you can look on 34 and I drive and there's one spot that they fix it probably, you drive on that once a month and it's still terrible. And I can't explain why. I mean, if it's just the way there's a water table under it, I don't know, that could be, but either they're not fixing it the right way. Yeah, I don't know. So it could be several different factors. So, and it's all over. I mean, it's the north, it's the south, it's the east, it's the west, it's everywhere. So I can't say a designated area where all these are, you know, specifically. I think it's just everywhere.
Thank you.
Along similar lines, with big changes in the graph, what happened with the street signs?
I think the no parking signs is what was replaced because we did some no parking signs. What was that? What was that square area that we did? I can't
It
remember.
was Cornelia.
Was it Borland? Was Borland the one?
Barland. Yeah, Cornelia, Barland Park area.
Yeah, so we did a whole like rectangular like neighborhood of no parking signs there, and then off a center point to help with the trucks parking on both sides at the hotel, we put it along that whole. It would have been the whole west side.
So some of those are new, not
Yeah.
actually replacements.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we just include those in those numbers, so they're not really
Okay.
replaced.
All right.
And then just replacing your normal stop signs that get
And we
hit.
replaced many stop signs,
Yeah.
the reflectivity is not
Yeah.
there, doesn't meet standards anymore, so we're slowly going through getting those replaced.
On this graph, contractor utility cuts, is that the contractor that cut the road for the utility, or that's the contractor we're using to fix the utility road?
Fix.
And part of his contract is when he does utility cuts, he now fixes the road at the same time.
Okay.
And he fixes some of our
And
utility
he
cuts
fixes
as
some of our
well.
old utility
Yeah.
cuts, then, but what we try to do is put material in, let it sit for about 30 days, get it good and compacted, then we come back and put the asphalt down.
Okay, so, but a contractor is doing all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way to keep track of how many utility cuts are made,
And that's,
so we can graph?
and that's what we look at. Now, some of them are large, lot larger. We have a certain size that we said was our standard utility cut.
Yeah.
And we get out there, sometimes we gotta do a lot more than that. So one cut that you see on the street may actually be 3 cuts in quantity because of the size of it. But no, we have a list and we know where we're doing what needs to be done.
There's a spot over there on Polk and Clark Street. Polk and Clark, that section right there in the middle of the street, it's been that way. It's just like the asphalt is tore up. It's not a hole, but it just tore up in that area that need to kind of be plugged up. And as you're going up over the railroad tracks, they got a cut right there.
Where all those
That-
new houses were built, yeah. I know
Yeah,
what you're
but
talking
no,
about. I know
it
where
needs to be
tracks,
filled
yeah.
in if they,
It's where that new
change it.
subdivision is to the
Right.
right off of Polk,
Yeah.
yeah. I know where you're talking about too, so.
Okay, thank you very much
Okay.
for your update. And now we'll move to item 11, City Council discussion of proposed agenda items. Are there any items that the City Council would like to see on the future agenda? I guess at some time, fishing at the lakes is going to appear on an agenda at the subcommittee meets, but are there other items?
I would like to discuss lighting in our neighborhoods. If we can,
Lighting?
Lighting.
Okay.
lighting.
Okay. Yeah, I know, that's a place out of mine, I got to call. Jeez.
Okay. Are there other items? There being none, you have item 12, the boards and commission minutes, Keep Greenville Look Beautiful, Greenville Entertainment Series, and Board of Parks and Recreation minutes. Have those before you for review. And if there is nothing else tonight, we'll We do expect to take a vote on item that is in executive session as we come out of executive session tonight.
On the MOU?
On an MOU, yes, on an MOU. I guess I can say that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a relatively minor item, I believe. Thank you for coming tonight.
you.